What's happening, people out there? I'm Alex Sayfie. I'm here with my brother John. Welcome to Double Take.
Let's go Heat!
Go Heat. We're in the WZBC Sports Radio studio. We got a great show planned today. A lot of fun things to talk about. We are very excited, obviously, because the Miami Heat just pulled off a nice win at home without Justice Winslow and Goran Dragic versus the Bulls in overtime.
Baby. Go
and
Heat.
more importantly, as we are approaching the NFL playoffs, it's great to see the Patriots lose.
What's that now? The Patriots are now
Chiefs.
0-3 against real NFL teams?
Yeah.
Wow.
Love that stat. It's probably my favorite stat of the night. Anyway, great show plans today. We're gonna get into we're gonna give you our top 5 NFL teams, our power rankings. Then we're gonna jump to our 10 takeaways from the first 20 games of the NBA season, roughly 20 games, about one-fourth of the way.
Into the season
That's right. And then we're gonna get into the NBA MVP ladder,
which we've been going through every week. Right now, we'll see. There's a few sleepers we got in there, but we'll get to that in a bit.
And of course,
first off,
wrap the show up with safe bets. Also,
with our safe bets of the week. But first off, our top 5 teams in the NFL going for the Super Bowl so far. Number 5, Alex, who do you got?
Give a huge shout out to the Kansas City Chiefs,
Woo!
number 5 team for our power rankings today. Obviously,
Patriots
we
fans.
just all saw. Right now, we're taping this. It's Sunday night. We just saw Pat Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and the Kansas City Chiefs take down the Patriots, snapping their 21-game win streak at home. So, also, another stat of the night was Mahomes is the first quarterback under 25 to win versus the Patriots in Foxborough. So, little interesting thing. But
not going so good.
Talking about the Chiefs, good to see that Mahomes is back healthy. They're starting to look, after this win tonight, they're looking like the team that, I think we thought that they could be. Until Mahomes went down a couple games with his injury this year.
Yeah, listen, I mean they've been injury plagued all year, and their record isn't incredible. I believe they're only they're about 9-4 right now. The Pats are 10-3, so they're one game behind the Pats for the 2 seed. I mean, I just don't see the Pats losing that 2 seed right now. The Pats the rest of the year are playing an easy schedule, kind of like the first half of their schedule. They got the Bengals, the Dolphins again, and the Bills. But at number 4, I got the Saints because they just got edged out today barely in that incredible game versus the 49ers, who are, spoiler alert, coming in at number 3 for us. But the Saints so far, Drew Brees today had 6 touchdowns. Going into this game, I'm sure a lot of the fantasy owners who had Drew Brees might have benched him, like somebody that I was playing in the playoffs. Thank God this week.
How many points did he have on the bench?
But Breeze had 40 points on the bench, so he's about, I think he's 40 years old now, so that's 40 points for number 40. But the Saints look great, but they're I got to give them the slight edge to the 49ers above them for the number 3 spot. So Alex, go ahead.
Number 3, the Niners. Obviously today they pulled off. I think this is definitely their signature win of the season. Early in the season, they had, a schedule that wasn't, all that. It wasn't super tough or anything. So there was definitely some doubts. But, after that Week 10 overtime loss to the Seahawks, and then even they lost that close game to the Ravens last week, losing to those... Yeah, off that game-winning field goal for
Tucker.
the Ravens. But after losing those 2 close games, those are 2 of the best teams in the NFL, people kind of question, okay, how good are these Niners? And I think this win today was huge. For Jimmy G to perform the way he did. I think he had 4 touchdowns. Kittle with that unreal play at the end.
Yeah.
He really saved the game for them because it was.
He's a huge,
down,
yards after the catch guy.
Yeah.
So, for Kittle, that was huge.
And then, of course, you got to shout out their kicker, Robbie Gould, for he grabbed the lead right as the clock went to 0. So that's their number 3
At
team.
number 2, I got the Seattle Seahawks. Once again, with our 2, 3, 4, we got the Seahawks, Niners, and Saints at those spots. And I give the Seahawks the slight edge over the Niners because they won head-to-head. And I think because of that, right now they look like they have a pretty good chance if they can, win the rest of the season and keep at least the same record as the Niners, they're going to keep that 2 seed, which seems very unfair considering that the Dallas Cowboys right now are going to, have a higher seed than the 49ers, even though they have a 6-7 record right? Because the way that the playoffs work in the NFL.
Yeah.
But I give the Seahawks the slight edge. They've pulled out a lot of close games. Russ Wilson's been incredible.
Yeah.
And, you thought they'd miss Doug Baldwin a lot more coming into the season, but they've been looking really good even without him. And lastly, at number 1.
No surprises here. The Baltimore Ravens. We've talked a lot about them this year, and obviously they're the controlling the narrative in the NFL this season with Lamar just, dominating. He's doing Michael Vick, with his own style, even better.
He's looking even better than him.
But actually, so the Ravens are the number 1 pick, and today they beat the Buffalo Bills, which is actually a close game. The Bills have, had they pushed some good teams to
their limits. Oh, this was fun. The Bills, right now, before their game today, the Bills were in control of their destiny to get the number 1 seed in the AFC playoffs.
Yeah.
If they had beaten the Ravens and beaten the Patriots and won out, then they would have the number 1 seed, which obviously was very unlikely, but it's hilarious to see. A lot of Bills fans were just thankful to be going to the playoffs, and they were here sitting in a spot where they could have potentially had the 1 seed, which obviously they lost now by 1 touchdown.
Yeah,
today.
but speaking on something that you said earlier, you said you probably think that the Pats, there's no way they don't, get a bye. I wouldn't sleep on the Bills, because the Bills early in the season, we saw the Patriots.
Was a close game.
It was a close game, and what happened in the end was that dirty hit on Allen, and he went out for the rest of the game. And they had their backup quarterback Matt Barkley come in, and he obviously wasn't going to do anything for them. So that was pretty much the game. That was within they were within a touchdown. If they had their first string quarterback, who knows what would have happened? So I'm actually pretty excited for that game. It's not next week, but the week after.
The only problem with this game though is that it's going to be in Foxborough.
Yeah, so definitely going to be tough.
The Bills, if they were going to be able to pull off an upset win against the Pats, it was going to have to be in Buffalo.
That's true. But I'll never count them out, man. I'm gonna be rooting for them in 2 weeks anyway. I'm officially a Bills fan for this next 2 weeks.
Yeah, listen, go Bills right now. We want them to take the Pats out.
Yep. Anyway, that's all the NFL we're gonna talk about. Now jumping to the NBA.
The association, baby.
We're a fourth of the way through.
These are our 10 takeaways from the first 20 games of the season. Coming in at number 1, I got the league is better without the Warriors. Ooh. And what I mean by that is if you just look at the top 10 teams so far, and in the NBA right now, at the top, from the top down, we got the Bucks, the Lakers, the Celtics, Mavericks, Heat, Raptors, Nuggets, Clippers, Sixers, and Rockets. When you look at those 10 teams, I legitimately see 10 teams that are contending, that want to legitimately have a shot to make it to the finals. And last year, I don't think. For the past 5 years, how about that? I don't think that was really, legit. There might have been 1 or 2 teams. Obviously, the Rockets could have, slid in there had they beaten the Warriors. But without, this Goliath of a team, this dynasty in the NBA anymore, it really opened up the league. And I just think so far, the first 20 games in, the first thing that I'm thinking about when I'm looking back on those 20 games is how much fun how much fun the league has been without the Warriors. And now that they're the worst team in the NBA right now. Yeah. What do you think, Alex?
And adding to that, there's definitely 2 parts of me that are excited to see the Warriors, really be just awful this year. Actually, there's 3. One, as a fan of the NBA, I'm happy that there's more parity in the league. The second part is, as a Warriors hater, I'm glad to see that they are 5-19, literally the worst team in the NBA. Actually, the Knicks are worse, I think. But
you know what?
Second worst. And then the third, as a Boston College student, I'm happy that them being so awful is giving Kai Bowman an opportunity to prove himself on the professional level.
Kai's going to make it.
Yeah.
Mark my words.
I really do believe in him.
He will play a solid career in the NBA as a role player.
He's been really good.
I like Kai. All right, Alex. Number 2. Our
second takeaway. This kind of goes a little bit to the idea of parity. The top of the East is a little bit different than we expected. And when I say that, I mean, coming into the season, the 2 teams that everyone was really talking about, John, was the Bucks and the Sixers. And then it was kind of everyone below them.
Which seems so whack looking back on it.
Well, to my own horn, I was not really buying into the Sixers. And maybe I probably said that on the show at that time.
I just thought it'd be the Bucks, but after last year what they lost, and then, we talked about it on the show, I didn't think they'd be able to make it back. After losing Brogdon, I thought it'd be a big deal. And I looked at the Sixers roster, and I guess I thought that they'd be great, but right now it makes sense. Listen, they just lost the other night to, who was the Wizards. They lost to the Wizards last night. So I think the Sixers, they're one of the of the top 10 teams, I think they're the team that probably loses the most to not great teams.
Yeah, but also the thing is that, obviously people thought it was going to be Bucks and Sixers. What it really is this is how kind of I see the landscape, is the Bucks, you just have to favor them over everyone else because right now they're the best player in the conference in Giannis. And then after that, the Celtics, the Heat, and the Raptors have been really surprising people. The Raptors are actually on a little cold streak. I think they just lost 3 straight. So now they're actually below.
They just lost tonight to the Sixers.
They lost tonight. So, which are the Sixers? The Sixers, that put the Sixers up to the 4th seed. But the Raptors are really surprising some people, and we'll talk about the Celtics and Heat. But first, let's get to the Raptors. Obviously, after losing Kawhi, no one really saw them as a team that could contend in the East.
I was shocked, even when that people had them, in their projections as high as they were. I mean, I thought they'd make the playoffs because the East is weak, but I kind of felt that, the Pacers and Nets would probably be better than them.
Oh, I definitely.
But they came out and were looking like a team that could, potentially have a 2 seed in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah.
And honestly, I credit a lot of it to Nick Nurse, the coach, who,
for sure,
they
got a great coach.
They just won a title. It's so easy to just sit back. I mean, look at like a good example, in NBA history is like the Dallas Mavericks in 2012.
They finally got over that hump, and then
they won their ring in 2011, and right at the next year they just they mailed it and they said, all right, we're gonna ride out this title wave and just enjoy it. But
it's interesting because I think
the Raptors
they were hungry. They won. So obviously, that was huge for them. But then they have enough young players, and then the fact that Kawhi left not only gave them opportunity, but I think it really fired them up. It fired up the Van Vliets, the Siakams, even Lowry is having... Lowry's production has jumped. He went from scoring 14 points a game last season, now with a new opportunity with, your best player leaving, he's scoring 20 points. We've seen Van Vliet jump all his numbers. You're not a big Lowry guy? But he's having good season so far.
But I love their young dudes. I mean, you look at how good Van Vliet's playing and how well Siakam's playing. For those fans, it gives you hope for the future.
And even Norman Powell, who's a guy who's he's just been kind of...
That's true. He balled against the Heat last week.
He's just been a guy on that team from in my eyes. He's been playing very well. Like you said, he was hurting us a lot when we played them last week. But he's averaging 13 points this season on 47% shooting from the field and almost 40% from the 3-point arc. So there's been good shooting, defense, and obviously they're improving their young guys. They have the foundation of a championship team, and obviously their younger guys have been able to
they're absolutely
take them
nice.
to the next level.
And also, like you talked about, the Celtics and Heat are also overperforming. I don't want to talk about the Celtics now because we're gonna get to them in a bit, but I mean we talk about them every week. But the Miami Heat, I mean it's so good to be a fan right now. Something I saw. I think on Twitter yesterday, and honestly, right now we just won tonight, so now our record is 17-6. But before on Twitter, it said 16-6, and it showed the Heat's records through the first 22 games in 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014, the 4 seasons that we had LeBron, and I believe our record was 16-6, and 3 out of those 4 years it was 16-6. And I think 1 out of the 4 years, it was worse, actually.
Wow.
So we're starting this season off as good as we have during the
LeBron James and Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh.
So listen, as long as we don't slow down, tonight, it was a close one. But listen, we almost lost to the Bulls. It was in overtime when we beat them. But at the end of the day,
without Justice and Gordon, though.
We didn't have Dragic, we didn't have Justice, but we did pull out the win. And, whether it was a close game or not, a win's a win. And I'll take it right now. We're 3-0 in our overtime games. We have overtime in Milwaukee. We beat the Bucks at home. We're their only loss at home. The Raptors, we were their first loss at home in the season. Since then, they actually lost to the Rockets. I think it might have been the night right after.
Yeah.
It was their next game after we beat them.
And then tonight they lost to the Sixers, but I think that was that at?
I'm not sure.
Philadelphia.
You could check their record, but yeah. So we were the first team to beat Milwaukee and Toronto at home. And then on the next night, we had Coach Spo had to fly back home because he was going to go watch the birth of his son.
His second son.
His new son, I think it was Dante. Yeah, his newborn baby son. But we were going into Boston, and going into that game, we just beat the Nets, we just beat the Raptors, and that was our 3-game road trip. Now, our second night of the back-to-back, and we're playing, the Boston Celtics, who've looked great so far, and this is another stat, I think a very telling stat for the Heat this year. We're 0-4 in our back-to-backs. We lost
Yeah.
to the Sixers, was the second night of a back-to-back. The Lakers, second night of a back-to-back. We lost to the Timberwolves we didn't have Butler that night, and that was the second night of the back-to-back. And again, like I just said, to the who was it?
Who'd you say, Sixers?
Oh, to the Celtics.
Celtics, yeah.
So now those are our 4 losses. 4 of our 6 losses currently, and I'm impressed. I love what I'm seeing. I'll take it. We had 6 losses right now. We're looking great, and they're all against playoff teams. They're all against not contenders. Aside from Minnesota, they're all against contenders.
Well, Minnesota also was. I don't want to say it was a fluke, but we didn't have Jimmy, and Andrew Wiggins just went off. But
yeah, it's a fluky win.
What I'll say about the back-to-backs is, good teams win back-to-backs in the regular season, or great teams, whatever it is. Great teams will win those games. However, there's no back-to-backs in the playoffs, which I think is good. And another huge, advantage for us is we're undefeated at home right now. We're 10-0 at home.
Yeah.
So we've been great at home. We've been very good on the road. We got to work on back-to-backs, but
right now,
very promising so
17-6. Right now we're on a 60-win pace. Which listen, I do not expect the Heat to win. If we won 60 games, that would.
If we won 50 games, it'd be.
That would be awesome.
Great.
If we can win 50, I would love to see it. But right now we're on a great pace. I think we'll hold it down. Hopefully we can do that for the rest of the season. But you can win a lot of games in the league if you beat the teams that are below 500, which we've done, and if you can win at home. And by doing that, we've put together a great team so far. And so just shout out Miami, Pat Riley putting this team together. Tyler Hero with a cold-blooded 3-pointer to tie the game. To send it to overtime. It was incredible.
Bucket.
All right, next up, number 3 and 4 on our list. Number 3, the Clippers aren't a regular season team. And
number 4, the Lakers are a regular season team.
Which is surprising.
Yeah.
Looking at, after... I was for the rest of the season, I'm going to be haunted by that first show that we had where I felt like such a prisoner of the moment. And listen, I mean, I was just calling what I saw, and that's fine. But I was very critical of, just the rest of their players other than LeBron and Anthony Davis. Looking at their team after they lost to the Clippers on that first night. And I was just worried going forward for LeBron. But I think it's good. They have had a very easy schedule. They haven't played, the Rockets yet. They haven't played the Clippers at full strength yet, which I would love to see. I need to see that. But right now, their 3 losses are against the Clippers, the Raptors, and Dallas. So 3 very good teams. But I'll just talk about the Clippers first, and then we can get more into the Lakers. So the Clippers are not a regular season team. And what I mean by that is, if you look at Kawhi Leonard, their best player, right now with the whole load management debacle that everyone's been, weighing in on, how we feel about players taking off games when, they're healthy. But it is good for their rest, right? I mean, Alex talked about that on one of our past shows.
Once you get to the playoffs.
But if you look at Kawhi, looking at his growth and development as a player, where did he start his career? The San Antonio Spurs, who were the ultimate, we don't care about the playoffs. We're going to beat you.
You don't care about the regular season.
I'm sorry. We don't care about the regular season. We're going to beat you on the road in the playoffs. They don't care that much about home court advantage. And we've seen that before. They'll go on the road and they'll win games in the playoffs. And that's just who they were. Greg Popovich would rather have a healthy team than have home court advantage. Yeah. And if you look at who the team that he was with last year, I mean, I picked the Bucks to win the finals last year going into the playoffs. I thought they were going to make it out of the East. And, they were more if you look at the Raptors, they were the low-key contender in the Eastern Conference behind Milwaukee, who had a 60-win season. Giannis had his MVP season. And then guess who won 4 straight games against them in the playoffs? Yeah. The Toronto Raptors and Kawhi Leonard. So they're a team that they're going to, they'll sneak in into the top 4. They'll be a top 4, top 3 team. They know that if they play the Lakers in the playoffs, it's not going to matter if they have home court or not.
Yeah, it really
because
won't.
It'll be an LA series.
7 games straight at home.
I wonder.
Just because of the fans.
I wonder if going into like Kawhi choosing to go to play for the Clippers, you think he's thinking like, oh, I'm going to have to go through the Lakers, and if I do, we go through LeBron and the Lakers, it's literally going to be 7 home games for that. I mean, we've never seen a playoff series between the Clippers and the Lakers. It's going to be crazy.
One, that's why I thought was so interesting about that first game is that I feel like once we saw that game happen, a lot of things kind of presented themselves to us, which was, the Lakers maybe not being, as an organization, not being as good as the Clippers, but then just the fan bases for the Clippers not being as good as the Lakers. Even though we saw the Clippers look like they had a better bench, a better put-together team, better squad, better coaching, despite that,
more Lakers fans.
There's more Lakers fans there. So there's that. But then I think also what's interesting about that is, like you said, since the Clippers aren't a regular season team, it might not matter to them because they know when they get to the playoffs, they can go with anyone. They can run with anyone. They have as much talent as anyone does in the NBA. And once you get to the playoffs, that might be all that really matters.
And the truth is, I hate to say this because I'm not holding the Clippers to the same standard as everybody else, but when I see that, the Clippers lost to, for example, they lost to the Rockets earlier this season, I don't take it the Rockets just leveled up on the Clippers. I look at that and I just kind of, to me, it's just 'cause I think of the Spurs. I think of how the regular season just did not matter, and I see I see a regular season loss for them. I'm not judging them that way because I know when we should judge them for real is come playoff time, and I know that right now I don't anticipate that they will be the number one seed out in the West. I would bet against it, but if I had to bet who would win, who's going to come out of the West and make it to the finals, I would put money on the Los Angeles Clippers right now.
Well, then the question becomes really when you talk about the regular season versus the playoffs is how much does the Lakers' regular season success actually mean? And I think, for me, I will say I think it is promising because in the regular season there are certain stats that do matter once you get to the playoffs. For example, your offensive and defensive rating. The Lakers this year, their offensive rating is number 3 and their defensive rating is number 5.
That's huge.
It's usually a number you have to be around top 5 for each field to win the championship.
If you look at all the championship teams, I think it's maybe one there was a Shaq and Kobe Lakers team that wasn't top 10 in defense. Yeah, but pretty much every team that wins a title was top 10 in defense.
Yeah. Well, I think that, and then I think with that too is, I guess once those teams like that Shaq and Kobe team got to the playoffs, maybe they turned it up. Which is like I said, the Clippers are right now lower than the Lakers are.
But I can't judge
defensive,
that.
Exactly. But you know that once you get into the playoffs, when you put out a lineup of Patrick Beverley, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, Montrezl Harrell, and Harkless, or whoever else your fifth guy is going to be. That's going to be a extremely
Paul George
great
and Kawhi,
lineup.
Going hard. Even Kawhi looked a little. He looked a
He's
little
not
bit banged up. No, I'm saying in the finals last year, he still had a little bit of that kind of herky-jerky game where he would slow it down and everyone just would react to him. It's very weird, but obviously he just has that command over the game.
But I think why he's been so great is because he's able to, he knows what he can do and where with the spots he can get on the floor, and it just almost it surprises the defender when he does certain moves and he just hits those mid-range shots. He doesn't really need to have his full 100% athleticism to be a great player in the NBA.
I credit so much of that though to the Spurs. Just his mind. He is the poster child of this whole load management thing, which I feel is going to start becoming more of a thing as the players. They realize, okay, listen, I don't care about once they say I don't care about winning. Individual team or player awards. I don't care about winning more regular season wins. I want to win in the playoffs, and they start focusing more on their health. I feel this is gonna become more of a thing. And look at Kawhi. He's the one leading this charge, and look who he came from, the Spurs. Who I remember, as kids, Alex, we were looking forward to watching. The Spurs play the Heat. It must have been 2012, or no, it was the 2013 season before we played them in the finals, and Greg Popovich got fined because he sent Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, and Tim Duncan home.
Yeah,
right. And guess what? Kawhi was on that team and he was 21 years old. Right. Kawhi's looking at this team and that's how he was brought up in this league, and he understands very much the importance of having that having health come playoff time.
Yeah. And then wrapping up just that fourth takeaway, the Lakers, being a regular season team. Like I said, I mentioned, how they're the third best offense, fifth best defense. I think those are great stats, but I also think the fact that right now Anthony Davis looks like he's on pace to be the defensive player of the year, and the fact that I still think LeBron could be the best player during the playoffs. That's going to give them the edge. And it also, I think if you look at the top two guys, who would you want? If right now you said you have a team in the playoffs, who would you want to lead you? It's LeBron and Kawhi. Depending on the person, they might change, but those are the two guys, which is why it's actually so exciting that we have these two teams on collision course in the Western
Both
Conference
in
Finals
LA.
with the two LA teams, the
Oh my
LeBron versus
gosh, it's gonna be
Kawhi, which we've
awesome.
seen in the finals before, and then just those two
Right.
guys going back and forth.
Right.
But I actually do think that they have a good shot.
Yeah.
Obviously.
And really quick on the Lakers, I think they're doing what they're supposed to do. They're beating all these bad teams because right now they're 20-3, which is they have a great record so far. But people have been a little bit critical of their record, of the teams they've been playing. But now I think coming up, they got a 5-game Eastern road trip. They're playing the Magic, the Heat, the Hawks, the Pacers, and the Bucks all away. So 5 games on the road. If the two ones I highlight on that are the Heat and the Bucks, I want to see what they do in those games. If they're
Bucks,
getting
that's a good one.
if they get trounced by the Bucks, I mean I think that would be very telling. And also then they return home for Denver, who they just beat on the road. They beat Utah and Denver in a back-to-back away, which looked great. But then I think the biggest test of the season will be on Christmas. They're going to play the Clippers. And listen, like I said, we can't judge the Clippers in the regular season. We have to take it out with a grain of salt. But I think if both teams are at full strength, they're going to be on national television on Christmas Day. Hopefully, that'll be a very telling game to see. We can gauge where they stack up against each other, where the matchups lie, and who's a little bit who might have the slight edge over the other one. All right, number 5 and number 6 come a bit hand in hand. It's these are our two Texas teams. Number 5, I got Doncic and Dallas are contenders. And 6, Harden and Houston are pretenders.
Let's start with Dallas, yeah.
I'll start with Dallas, number 5. I'm loving right now just what I'm seeing from Luka Doncic.
I think everyone is, man.
I'll spoil my my MVP picks for our later segment. It's Luka so far, in my opinion. I think he's been the MVP. Something that's crazy to think about. Me and Alex have been watching basketball since we were 10 or 9 or 10,
Whatever.
And looking at Luka Doncic, I mean, we always look up to the players like, LeBron, when he came to Miami, he was 25 years old. He's so much older than us. All these players are in their 20s and 30s. Luka Doncic is literally 11 months older than me. That's insane that what he's doing right now is just absurd. And right now he just broke this record for the most games straight of having at least 20 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists. Okay, so it's not averaging that throughout games, but it's having at least reaching those benchmarks and in a game. And he's done it. Tonight he just broke the record that was held by Michael Jordan.
Well, actually, no. It wasn't the record.
I was going to say, from players since the merger in 1976, because Oscar Robertson holds that record.
Say the record. What's the record?
But the record is it's 18 games, and now Luka just broke it and has 19 games
for
straight.
what? You didn't say what it was.
I did say what it was.
Oh.
In 19 games straight of 20 points, 5 assists, and 5 rebounds at least in the game. So to me, it's crazy to think about because you see Westbrook has a streak of 17 games, and then he did it 16 games both in 2015 and he did it also in the 2017-18 season. And LeBron had one of 15 straight games. But a guy like LeBron, who's averaged for his career 27 points, 7 rebounds, and 7 assists, you feel like his streak, he'd be holding, he'd be the leader of this streak.
At least 20 games.
But now we got a 20-year-old guy. Luka's not even legally able to drink an alcoholic beverage in the United States. And he just broke a record that he broke LeBron, Russell Westbrook, Michael Jordan, record for this. So I think he's been awesome. And right now, the fact that they're a 2 seed is insane. Coming into the year, me and Alex talked a lot about the teams that we thought would, barely sneak into the playoffs. Maybe the Spurs just because of their coaching. Maybe the Kings because of their young core. If Zion came back, maybe it'd be the Pelicans because I like their roster a lot. But one team I told Alex I thought was going to make it was the Mavericks. And I was right, but I was right for the wrong reasons. I thought Luka was going to be great. I thought he would level up. But I thought Kristaps would be as well. And I thought it would kind of be 50% Luka being great, 50% Kristaps being great. But in reality, it looks more like 90%, 10%. I mean, I honestly credit 90% of this Dallas Mavericks team to Luka Doncic right now. And they're the number 2 seed right behind the Lakers in the Western Conference right now.
I'd say that's probably pretty accurate as far as, Luka's, him getting credit for their success. Although I will say I would actually disagree with that takeaway. I don't know if I would say they're contenders. I think they'll make the playoffs, which I think is a win for them. Last year they were in the lottery. Even this year they were in the lottery. They didn't have their pick obviously. But they were in the lottery the past 2 years. And then when Luka makes this unreal jump, and then you get Kristaps Porzingis and your other players start to fit in more. You have the Jalen Brunsons, the Seth Currys, the Maxi Klebers, whatever, or Kleber I think it's pronounced. They're looking good, and it's definitely a big jump for them. this is 16-6 is and then being the 2 seed is something I.
Well, if
I
they
think
won tonight, they're 17-6.
Yeah, or whatever it is. But I think we'll see them as the season goes on. They'll kind of come back to. They'll fall back to earth.
So Lakers, Clippers are the 2 teams we think are the best in the West right now. Who do you got number 3? Because I'm not putting the Rockets.
Are we talking about the playoffs?
I'm not talking about who's gonna end up seeding. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm just saying, just best basketball team. Like at full strength, healthy, in the playoffs.
My answer is the Denver Nuggets.
You have the Nuggets over the Mavericks.
I do.
All right, so in the playoffs, it matters. The play.
Nuggets are a good team.
It matters who the best player. I'll take the best player on the floor, right? And that's who the Mavericks are gonna have against every team except when they go against Kawhi and the Clippers, and when they go against LeBron and the Lakers. So now, truthfully, I'm taking the Mavericks over the Nuggets. The Nuggets were young last year, and they won 7 games in the first round with the San Antonio Spurs, who are a 7 seed.
Dude, honestly, that probably helps my point, because the reason that we saw that happen, I think, is because that was a team that was a young Denver team that for the first time was in the playoffs, and they were going against like a pretty veteran squad with as in the Spurs. So I think if we see the Mavericks make it to the playoffs, they're definitely going to be a team that will have some growing pains. And it's not even an issue. Luka's 20 years old. Like he's going
to be 21.
If I had to bet right now, I'd say he's going to win a couple MVPs, couple championships, whatever throughout his career. Hopefully, not going to work.
He's got 20 more years.
But this is not their year, and this doesn't have to be their year. But I would disagree with that take. But the question
that's fine. It's not their year, but I think they're better than every team in the West other than the Lakers and Clippers.
To go on a little tangent, I think that the question you asked me about who do you see after the Lakers and Clippers, I think that really just illuminates the fact that the West versus the East is actually, it's usually you think, the West is so much, or the past we've seen the West be so much better. I think right now it's definitely that's not the case. But not only that, I think the West is more top heavy, because if you look at the teams,
think both conferences are top heavy though.
I disagree, because I think
once you pass the 8 seed in the East, who's that good?
How many teams would you be surprised if they made the finals in the East versus in the West? I think in the East I could see the Bucks making it, but because they didn't make it last year too, I wouldn't write them in as a lock. I could see the Celtics sneaking in. I could see the Sixers. I could see the Raptors. I could see the Heat. Maybe not the Raptors actually, but I could see other teams making it. I'm gonna be honest. In the West, I only see 2 teams. It's Lakers or Clippers to me. There's no other team that's gonna make that could.
Okay, so I get what you're saying. Yeah, no, I would say their top teams are better, but I wouldn't call that top heavy as in there's a few teams up. To me, the East and the West are both top heavy, because I think the top 5 teams in each conference are just so much better than every other team. I think there's a huge drop off from the top 10 teams in the league, which is 5 in the East and the 5 in the West. And
I think it's actually 6 if you look at 6 each, because the 6 seeds in each are the Jazz and then the Pacers.
I want to count the Jazz, but they have 10 losses right now. They're 13-10. They're 3 games above 500. I like them, but they've dropped a few games recently. They're 5-5 in their last 10 games. Yeah. And then Indiana and Brooklyn, I like, but
not Brooklyn, but
they don't have the star that I think you need that all the other teams have, right? Even Toronto. Toronto, Denver both got Siakam and Jokic respectively.
Wait till Oladipo comes back.
So if Oladipo comes back and he's the the number 1 guy, undisputedly on that team, then I could see putting them in. But right now they're not a team that I think is in the top 5. Yeah. But like I was saying, I do think maybe you could see that the Clippers and Lakers are a little more beatable, or they're less beatable than you're saying the Bucks are, I guess, in the East. But I might say it's kind of equal. I think the Bucks should be as favored to make it out of the East as the Lakers and the Clippers are.
That's fair. I think truthfully the only teams I could see winning the title at all are the Lakers, Clippers, and the Bucks. But then as far as the other teams in those 2 conferences, I would just say the East is better. Anyway, on to number 6, or 6 takeaway. John already said it. Harden and the Houston Rockets are pretenders. So currently the Houston Rockets are 15-7, unless they might have a game right now, but whatever. 15-7. And they sit
as
at the
a few hours ago.
Yeah, they sit at the number 4 seed in the West, which is not bad. It's good. They're behind only the Lakers, Clippers, and the Mavericks.
The 3 teams that I think are better than them.
Okay. And the reason I would say I think they're pretenders is based on what I've seen them do in the past and the way the play style. In my opinion, I just think I've already seen this best iteration of, this type of team, this brand of basketball, and that was the 2018 Rockets, the team that had Chris Paul and Harden, along with Ariza, PJ Tucker, and, Clint Capella. And they had most of the same team. However, I just think the difference between Chris Paul and Westbrook on this team, I think it really does mean something. And in the regular season, you have Harden and Westbrook, like they're gonna get you wins. They're gonna win games. Obviously, they're gonna put up stats. They're gonna look good. They're gonna be a good regular season team. You just talked about regular season versus
look
playoffs.
good individually, which I'll get to in a sec.
But they're gonna be a good regular season team. But once you get to the playoffs, I just think the fact that Russell Westbrook it's really mind-boggling. Like, he's lost his jump shot in the last couple of years, and the fact that he is not an outside threat is going to harm them in the playoffs when the games tend to slow down and when it's more of a chess match between the coaches and you can make certain adjustments. Like,
they're going to expose that weakness.
That's what
other teams will do in the playoffs.
And so I just think other teams are gonna expose them, and Harden is just not gonna be able to Superman them the way he can in the regular season and do that into the playoffs, and that equal success for them.
Well, so it's just a live by the shot, die by the shot. It's like live by Harden, die by Harden, and that loss against the Spurs, which we need to stop really quick and take a detour for a second. How absurd! I mean, we've never seen a story like this where Harden dunked the ball in the mid. So it was towards the end of the game. It was the third or fourth quarter. He dunks the ball, but the ball swung out of the net in a weird way.
So it really looked like he didn't make it.
It looked like he missed it. But Harden didn't know that he made it either. The refs didn't, and the other players grabbed the rebound and played it. So now
No, I think Harden did.
Houston was up 15 at this point. No, Harden didn't, because Harden chased the rebound. If you look at the play, so now Houston's up 15. Right? They blow a 15-point lead. They lose to the Spurs, and now they just filed a grievance. They filed a complaint to the league where they want to play the remaining 7 minutes and 50 seconds of the game, and against the Spurs. To have that so they can have a chance of that win back, which I think is ridiculous because one, with 8 minutes left in the game, you choked away the game to the Spurs. Lead, a 15-point lead. That's one. Two, I feel like they missed that. They thought they missed the dunk too. Like why wasn't it addressed then and there?
No, well, here's the thing.
Now we have all these
I'm pretty sure they looked at the replay rules. I was just gonna say is my two takeaways from that is it's ridiculous that the Rockets. I feel like the Rockets are a team who are just always playing the victim card, between them losing to the Warriors the past 2 years.
I'll give them credit when they playing the Warriors versus the Spurs in the regular season is a lot different.
Sure, but anyway, I just think they're a team in general that tries to play the victim card. You choked away a 15-point lead, but at the same time, I don't know how in the 21st century, it's almost 20 the year 2020. We have video replays. We have all these things. The refs always stop games just to look at. It doesn't matter what it is. They'll look at anything just to replay it and make sure you get the right call. How do you not just go look and see? It's so clear when you watch it that obviously it was a dunk. It went through the hoop.
I think that's what. But the thing is, watching it live, I think the coaches, the players, I think they all thought it was a miss and they just played it. And I don't know. I think it's the most absurd thing. I haven't seen a story like it. But okay. But getting back to it, they end up losing that game. And it's just such a symbolic loss for the Rockets. Harden with a 50-point game and Westbrook with a triple-double. If you look at that box score, if I told you, Alex, Harden dropped 50 tonight and Russ had a triple-double, you're going to think, oh, yeah, they probably won the game. Yeah, but it just goes to show you that, these two players who are very much I'm not going to say they're solely individual stat guys. They're MVPs. They both made it to the finals when they were together. And I think they're great players. But I don't want to say they're more concerned with stats. Westbrook has been criticized in his career for stat padding and arguing with the stat takers about they missed a rebound that he grabbed or whatever it is. And I just think both these guys who are huge stat guys, it kind of takes away partly from the team aspect of the game, and they lost the game in which. One of them had a triple-double and one of them had a 50-point game, which is a great individual performance.
Well, the more important stat of that night is that those two guys combined they combined to shoot 18 for 68 from the field.
Which is 25%.
Harden, it was just such a weird game between, the dunk that was missed, between the Spurs being a team that's not having been that great and then competing with a great team in the Rockets. And then what was so interesting to me was Harden shot 11 for 38. He shot 38 shots, but he got to the free throw line 24 times and was 24 for 24. So if you're gonna go 11 for 38, the only way you're gonna get to those 50 points is if you shoot. Or if you make 24 free throws.
Which, listen, that's one of his biggest skills. But
oh yeah,
again, like you just said, Alex, I think this is one of the reasons we're calling them pretenders. Is they're not looking as great as they were with Chris Paul. We think Westbrook might be a downgrade for this system, but they are going to be a great team. Come playoff time, I hope they can prove themselves. Last year they had the chance to do it. KD got injured, and Harden didn't show up. For those last 2 games they had, and but yeah, really quickly before we move on to the next one. I just think that, like you said, you highlighted the inefficiency. They shot 26% combined in that game, and that's the reason they choked away a 15-point lead in the fourth quarter. All right, so number 7, our 7th takeaway, Kyrie Irving has very high Ewing theory potential. So just for those of you who don't know, I'm going to explain Ewing theory. Ewing theory alludes to, the 1999 season where Patrick Ewing was injured for the New York Knicks. Yet that team, as an 8 seed, without Patrick Ewing, their best player, made it to the finals, to the NBA Finals, and lost to the Spurs. So Ewing theory is, essentially saying a player that when they're not on their team, the team is actually better. And so, Alex, why don't you tell us the reasons why Kyrie right now is looking like very high Ewing theory potential?
Yeah. So first, shout out to Bill Simmons. That's his theory that he created in his basketball book.
Bill Simmons.
But anyway, the reason it's very clear that Kyrie is there's this little Ewing theory going on with him. Last year he was on the Boston Celtics, and this year he left the Celtics.
Oh.
And what we've seen is the Celtics have, seen some addition through subtraction. They got rid of Kyrie, and they're looking even better than they did without him. Obviously they have Kemba now, but it's mostly the same team, and it's not even like we're seeing Hayward come back, because Hayward wasn't with them. He wasn't really with them at full strength the last 2 seasons. Now he was really good this season, but Hayward's been injured too. So it's not like we've seen Hayward come back, and that's the reason they're good. I think, and if you ask anyone who's better, Kemba or Kyrie, everyone's gonna take Kyrie.
Kyrie's the best. He's incredible.
There's no doubt. There's no doubt. However, Kyrie's left the Celtics, and now that team is better. And now, moving to his current team, the Nets are now 4-1 in their last 5 games without Kyrie.
They played more games without him.
They played more games without him.
Right now, they're 13-10. When Kyrie left, they were under 500.
Yeah, they were under 500.
And now they're 13-10.
Above.
With Spencer Dinwiddie running the point, right?
And today they beat the Nuggets, who I just said I think they're probably the 3rd best team in the West. That's a really good team, and you beat them without Kyrie Irving? How do you do that,
Yeah. So that's I think it's a classic Ewing theory
example
theme that we got going this year.
Number 8. Chris Paul is untradeable. So in 2018, he signed that massive 4-year, $160 million contract for the Rockets.
Ew.
Which he did that at age, I don't think...
Must have been 32.
Chris Paul, age...
What?
He's 34, so he did that when he was 32. But which would mean that contract would take him to his... To the point where he was 37, because I think this year he's going to turn 35. But that was 2 years ago. Anyway, so he's untradeable because, he signed that contract that was going to be giving him $40 million as he's a declining player into his late 30s. But the reason that he really he created this destiny for himself is because when the collective bargaining agreement was, renegotiated a couple years ago, he was one of the only players who had a say in, anything that you could put in it, because he's the president of the Players Association. And what had happened was, so in an article that Rob Mahoney wrote for The Ringer, this is just a good way to put it. The most conspicuous bit of negotiation came by changing the over 36 rule, a provision that made it more difficult for teams to sign veterans to longer contracts stretching beyond their 36th birthday, to an over 38 rule, just in time for Paul to take advantage of the age of 32 with a 4-year, $159.7 million contract. So
making good decisions.
If
for the players union.
Exactly. If this little provision wasn't made to the collective bargaining agreement, Chris Paul wouldn't have signed that massive, untradeable contract. And, we would have probably seen him sign something smaller, maybe a short-term deal.
I mean, there's so many
smaller.
teams that could want to trade for him right now.
For sure, and now
Lakers.
he's just screwed. He's stuck in OKC, which is a team that's, I would say, definitely not going to make the playoffs, even though, if you look on paper.
They're like a 10 seed.
They'll
be solid.
They're a team with good players. They just don't.
They compete every night.
The team doesn't really make that much sense, in my opinion. But, yeah, so I think he's untradeable, and he kind of created that own destiny for himself, not only by signing that massive contract, getting, $40 million when he's going to be 38, or 37, whatever. But obviously that little provision in the CBA that he helped.
I just think, create. As a team, I cannot understand justifying that deal. So he's 32. He's playing. Chris Paul's a great basketball player right now, at 32 years old, right? At the time, he's 34 now, but at the time, you're saying, this is a fact. Chris Paul's a great basketball player. But obviously, he's on the decline. 33, 34, 35. He gets older, 36, 37. And the way the deal works, he makes more money every year. It's the same way with the John Wall deal. And, I get it when it's let's say in 3 years from now, Tyler Hero's a stud at age 22, and the Miami Heat signed him a 5-year contract where at age 27, he's making the most money, of the 5-year deal. Instead, this year, you're paying Chris Paul, a player who's playing at his peak at age 32, and you're playing him, and you're paying him, and you're telling him that he's going to make the most money once he's 37 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I just think one team wants a 37-year-old guy who's taking $40 million off your salary cap.
Is he going to finish his career in OKC?
It just makes no sense. And, another guy who's in a similar position right now is Kevin Love, who's making a lot of money. I think his deal is a little shorter, but he's making a lot of money. And the thing is, I don't know, who's going to be able to trade for him because who's going to want to take on that salary cap.
Yeah, and then really quick, I just don't, on that, that contract idea, I don't get it either. Why does it happen where we see those contracts just go up every single year? Wouldn't it make more sense for Chris Paul as a 32-year-old to make the bulk of that money for that contract in his first 2 years and then it go down? For example, the only time I've seen this is Aaron Gordon recently signed a contract. It was a 4-year deal where it was $20 million. Then the next year this year he's making 19, then 18, and then it's going to be 16. It's the only time I've seen that where it goes down.
You don't want that money in advance.
Yeah, well, it makes more sense to me. You expect a player. I mean, maybe not for Aaron Gordon, who's
he's young. He should be going up.
You'd assume that a younger player, their trajectory of talent is going to be going up. But for a guy who's in his late 30s, you'd think it'd be going down.
Yeah.
So John, I actually want to hear
Alex.
you say this next takeaway, number 9, or ninth takeaway.
Listen, Alex is the one who said this one. This is number 9. I'm quoting Alex.
Well, I want John to say it because the blasphemy that you spewed last time.
I speak facts. Melo ain't washed. That's not my takeaway. Okay, fine. You want to say it? He's not washed up anymore. Okay, he's not washed. He was though.
What do you mean he was?
Right now, listen,
if he's not, he's never,
playing well for them.
He was.
And I said this on the show. I said this a few weeks ago. I said signing Melo was a fine deal for the Blazers to make. It was a low risk, a high reward situation for him. They sign him. Worst case scenario, he doesn't play well. All right, you bench him. Best case scenario, he plays well. All right, you sign him to a contract for the rest of the season. And look, he's doing well. He's playing better than Mario Hezonja. And congratulations, Melo. You hear that? I'm clapping for you. You got a Player of the Week award. Congrats.
Thank you, John, for congratulating him. I just want to, give some stats to illustrate why Melo is not, in fact, washed. So this is a little 5-game stat thing where before this Lakers game where the Blazers got slapped by the Lakers. Before that, Melo was in those 5 previous games. Melo was averaging 19.2 points and 6.8 rebounds on 51% shooting from the field and 46% shooting from behind the arc. Portland was 4-1 in those 5 games. I mean, you just love to see it. You just love to see it.
I'm happy for you, Melo. You're back in the league.
I am too, man.
You signed. Guess what? This is the team that wanted you a few years ago, but you thought you were too good for him, and you didn't sign with him. So that's great. I'm glad you're with him now. And he didn't look like this. He didn't look like this in Houston. That's all I'm gonna say. Congratulations, Melo.
Dude, Houston scapegoated him. All right, whatever.
No, we're not getting into this. Lastly, number 10 from our top 10 takeaways through the first 20 games of the season, the New York Knicks still stink. We actually talked about this last week, about them firing their coach, potentially doing it. Fizdale was on the hot seat, and they just fired him. And he was a former assistant coach to Eric Spoelstra on the Miami Heat coaching staff.
He should be an NBA coach. He is an NBA coach.
I'm happy. I love Fizz.
Coach in this league.
Love Coach Fizz, and I'm glad that they fired him. I'm glad he's gone. He's out of that situation. But I wanted to read this quote from Greg Popovich, which I think Greg Popovich, he's a very well-spoken guy, and when he only speaks on things when he has something good to say. So I'll just read this quote about it. I don't know where the decision was made to fire Coach Fizdale, but if it came from the top, it's a case of mistaken identity. He's a fine, talented young coach with a great pedigree, and it's ridiculous to think you're going to bring a young guy in after being there a minute and a half. You expect him to fix everything that's been wrong there for a long time. That's pretty unfair. So it's the old analogy. He got thrown under the bus. He'll come out of it because he's a great coach. So the thing is here, just like Popovich said, I think he said it perfectly.
Love it, Pop.
Yeah.
I appreciate
it.
Pop. Yeah, man.
I think he said it perfectly. This team is just a horrible situation. Their front office is bad. They're just bad. And the roster they put together for him was atrocious. Here, so this is from Saturday night. The Knicks players have a new coach, but the New York front office and ownership is not showing up, right? So this is an article from this weekend. The decision makers of the New York Knicks are ghosting their team. So the Knicks players, are reaching out, and both of it's Mills and I forget Steve Mills is the GM.
And Scott Perry. No,
right.
GM is Scott Perry.
Both of them
and president is Steve Mills.
After firing David Fizdale, they didn't have a press conference. So. They're just cowards. They're hiding. Like, what are you hiding from? You guys are running a team poorly, and you have a great young coach, and you fire him because, guess what? The roster stinks. He wasn't going to win games with them.
Yeah, and just on that really quick, I'm obviously always going to defend Fizdale, not just because he used to be on the Heat, but I know he's a good coach. I don't think he should ever have gotten fired from Memphis, and I think he was put in a position to fail. He was literally given a heaping pile of garbage, and when, he didn't turn it into
What happened to KD and Kyrie? I thought they were going to get Zion. What happened?
They signed 14 power forwards this summer, and that's probably, the least important position in today's NBA. At this point, everyone's playing small ball. You don't need Taj Gibson. You don't need,
Listen, if it's Anthony Davis, it's one thing, but they weren't signing Anthony Davis. Marcus Morris, Julius Randle, Bobby Portis, Taj Gibson, 4 guys who,
how about he signed? They gave him. It's a completely young team with no veteran leadership.
Well,
who do you think their leader is in the locker room?
No, I think Morris is old. He's the older guy. Which surprisingly, he is averaging the most points on their team right now, which we did not expect. But I think they're young guys. I think Mitch Robinson, that's looking great. RJ Barrett looks like he can become good in the future. I think those 2 guys, that when you look at as a Knicks fan, those are 2 things you can be hopeful for. But other than that, it's really sad how atrocious their front office is.
Yeah.
All right, so we got, we just went through our 10 takeaways. But moving along, our MVP ladder, really quick. Alex has his pick. I'm going to throw my pick for the MVP, and we're going to talk about a few more guys. Like I said, I got Luka right now, and MVP. I think if we had to vote today, I do think he'd win the vote, and because MVP is about the narrative, right? So look about Lamar Jackson's season right now. Luka is young and he's exciting, and the voters and fans, like seeing the new blood with the new story, right? And that's kind of what Lamar's going through right now. He's new and he's exciting and that he's likable. And I think Luka's the same way. If he can take them to a top 5 seed, which right now they're number 2 in the Western Conference, but if he can take them to a top 5 seed, with their mediocre roster, and he's doing that at age 20, he's going to turn 21 in February. I think that's easily, a reason for him to be the MVP right now. And right now, what's absurd is, right now his PER is the second best of all time. Which, surprisingly right now, the first one of all time is Giannis.
The real
Antetokounmpo.
MVP.
No, it's Giannis Antetokounmpo. But, PER is player efficiency rating, which measures, it takes a lot of stats into account and their efficiency. And right now, you look at the best PERs in NBA history. It's Will Chamberlain, Michael Jordan, LeBron, Steph Curry, right? It's all these great players. And right now, number 1 and 2 leading that category, all-time history, is Giannis and Luka. Yeah. But guess what? Luka's doing it to me. He's looking at age 20, and he's doing it with a worse team. And it's incredible.
Well, I think the fact that he's age 20 doesn't factor into whether or not he should be the MVP. That's more.
Like I
absurd
said,
thing
it's
for us.
about the narrative, and it will factor into the voters. They're gonna
The narrative
do
does,
it.
and I know
listen, Giannis won an MVP last year, and listen, people just want the new next thing, and they're okay. Giannis, he's awesome. We get it. They want the new next thing, and I think voters are gonna do that.
Well, I'm not gonna say what I think the voters are gonna vote for. I'm gonna say who I think actually is the MVP. I know that the narrative can take control of the vote, where we saw it with Westbrook as like, he averaged that triple-double that year.
Which is the first time ever.
Harden
since
might have
Oscar
actually been a
Robertson.
better player, but
Right.
it doesn't matter. So yeah, I'll definitely disagree with that. Luka's having an incredible year, and people want to jump and say he's the MVP. He's up there, no doubt. I would say he's top 2 or 3 probably right now for MVP. Just this way into the season. But people are forgetting he's also the most improved player this season. I don't think I've heard one person say Luka for most improved. Everyone's just Luka for MVP. But
I mean, yeah, I guess we've never seen a player win both, but
yeah,
that's
that would be
special. That's
crazy.
how special he is. He leveled up so much from when he was 18. He turned 19 last. Or no, I'm sorry, he was 19.
Mm-hmm.
He turned 20 last year, and now he's gonna be 20, turning 21, and he's nearly averaging the triple double. Which like we said, we don't care about chasing those stats, but what he's doing is incredible for his team.
And
his
how about-
PER is very high, and
Yeah.
he's taking them to a number 2 seed right now. He's winning games with this team that. Like I said earlier in the show, Kristaps, I thought he'd be a lot much better than he is, but it's really 90% Luka how good this team is right now.
Yeah. Well, speaking of leveling up, the real MVP from the first fourth of the season has to be Giannis Antetokounmpo. Last year, Giannis was the MVP, averaging 28, 12.5 rebounds, or nearly 28. It was 27.7. 12.5 rebounds and 6 assists. He took that Bucks team to 60 games, which was a team that no one saw being good going into the season, which I think definitely contributed to his MVP case. But after a fourth of the season, after 23 games, this year, his numbers are even better. He's scoring 31. He's averaging 31 points a game, 13 rebounds, and 5 assists, which is 1 assist lower than last year. But their team without Brogdon and with some injuries, and their Middleton
I do think it's a better roster than Mavericks roster though.
Yeah, for sure. They're a better roster, but I'm just saying compared to last season, I think
And they're in
the
the
Bucks
East.
the Bucks are not as good as they were last year. Giannis is even better, and you want to pull out excuse me, you want to pull out the PER argument. Giannis is number 1 all time right now. I mean, obviously, who knows whether that will sustain
It's
itself
an average
for both
over
players.
the first 20 games.
But right now, if the season ended today, Giannis would have the best single season PER of all time.
It really is great.
Above
How about the
Will
fact that-
Chamberlain, Michael Jordan,
Right.
LeBron.
The fact that these guys are doing it in the same season, has that ever happened? We got Wilt in 63, Wilt in 62, LeBron in 09. I mean, no, there's never been 2 guys doing it in the same year. Like it really is.
It's
really is insane. And I definitely think. Listen, if someone's voting for Giannis, I'm not knocking him. Because my personal vote would be with Luka right now, but I think it's just so exciting for these two guys who are from outside of America coming into to the American Basketball Association, right, and just balling. And I think this is all lining up for hopefully the Bucks underperform. And listen, I want Giannis in Miami, but if it doesn't happen, if we see this international super team with Luka, Giannis, and Kristaps Porzingis all together in Dallas,
Not happening.
The Mavericks are gonna go after him. We know it's gonna happen.
So will the Heat. So will the Nets. So will every team.
And listen, he wants to be loyal and stay with the Bucks. but-
Okay, before we finish, safe picks, John. Who you got?
All right.
Safe pick of the week.
There
safe
was a
bet
lot
of
of
the week.
there was a lot of good picks coming next week. I usually like going with the Monday night game, which I could take the Giants plus 9.5 at the Eagles, but I don't really trust them. The Eagles did just lose to the Dolphins, which makes me think, all right, a team like the the Dolphins, we just beat them. If the Giants are,
Keep in mind the
pretty
Giants
solid-
have Eli coming back.
Oh, exactly. But Eli coming back, I don't know. I think the Eagles, they should be able to handle that one. I also looked at the Pats minus 11 at the Bengals, but I'm going to settle for. I'm going to go with Thursday night game. I'm going to take the Ravens. This is a big one. Minus 14.5 versus the Jets. So they're going to be at home playing the Jets. They absolutely annihilated the LA Rams last Monday Night Football. I think they're going to do the same thing, and they're going to win by more than 15 points on Thursday night. Alex, who do you got for your safe bet this week?
My safe bet, I'm going to have to pick the one you mentioned. I like that Monday night game. The The Giants plus 9.5. As much as I would hope the Eagles could just absolutely annihilate the Giants, because I don't
like that game.
I have Alshon Jeffrey in fantasy, and I need him to ball out. I think 9.5 is a lot of points, and I think those teams are about the same. So I will say I'll just pick the Giants plus 9.5.
Well, they're not about the same. The Giants have like 2 wins or something.
As of now, like at this point, they're both pretty.
With
cruddy.
Eli coming back, that's a stay away game. So thanks for just handing me the win this week, Alex. I really appreciate that.
Shout out Eli. He's gonna come through for me. All right, thanks, guys. That's all we have time for tonight.
Thanks for listening.
Please follow us on Twitter at @doubletake_. Double-take _ to stay up to date with our podcast, the safe bets, and more. We're
going to be trying to upload it to Apple Podcast and Spotify. Hopefully that should happen this week. But if we're still on SoundCloud, that's how you're listening to us. Thanks so much for listening.
Have
a good week.
Good night.